Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea. Hope you're all good. Today is a very, very special day because I'm very excited to introduce to you the brand new Boss Katana MK2. So this is a sponsored video. I'm doing this in association with Boss. I'm very excited to be able to show you this on release day, which is actually the 3rd of October. That's Ben's birthday as well, so happy birthday, Ben. Either way, I'm showing you the Katana MK2 and it's going to be awesome. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the Katana is probably one of the best selling amplifiers that's come out in the last few years. Boss absolutely nailed it with this amp. It was packed full of features. We all love them. The guys at Anderton's, myself, Rob, all those guys, really big fans of the Katana range. I actually use the KT50 as my main practice amp downstairs when I'm not holed up in here in the man cave. I also use the Katana Mini on the road, the Katana Air, which was the whole remote, plug it in and you can use it anywhere kind of thing. Basically, they're just awesome amplifiers. I mean, needless to say, we use them that much in Sound Like as well that you guys are getting frustrated about that. So I'm just keep looking over at the Boss Katana. The other option, of course, which is my preferred choice, is the Boss Katana. Boss Katana 212, because it's a beast.
The Katana.
The Boss Katana 100
is I'm gonna go with a Katana.
I know that, we use Katana a lot, but also, this is probably my favorite one. I'm sure you guys will say, oh, it's the Katana again. I mean, I could go Katana as well. I reckon we just go with the Katana Artist. We need a lot of effects, reverb, delay, chorus. We need a lot of gain.
I can see where you're going here, mate.
You see where I'm going?
Where you're going.
Katana. That just goes to show that they really do sound great and they've really nailed it because this amp just has too many features in it that you can use at literally the push of a button or the twist of a knob. So today we're looking at the brand new MK2. Now, Boss wanted to make it perfectly clear to everybody that it was already a great amplifier. It was an award-winning amplifier. So they've just updated it. They've just changed a couple of little things and added to it as opposed to making a completely new amplifier. So at its core, this amplifier is pretty much the same as the Katana. However, there are some updates to it in terms of its functionality, sound design, and there's more effects now, things like that. A couple of features we'll get into. This video is basically an overview of how it works, what's different, and of course, how it sounds. Definitely worth letting you guys know that these upgrades are only applicable to the 50, the 100, the 212 and the 100 watt head. All the Katana Mini and the Air and stuff will remain the same. What's going to happen is the original Katana will be discontinued, so that 50, the 100, the 212, etc. they're discontinued, being replaced with the MK2. All the other models beneath those will remain the same. In terms of the 50 MK2, it's going to be €269. All the prices are being euros currently. The 100 watt MK2, which I've got to my left, is $379. Then you've got the 212, which is $499, and then the head MK2, which is $419. So they're all really reasonably priced considering what you're getting in this amplifier. And it's also worth saying if you've created any patches on the Katana MK1, they can be copied over to Katana MK2 and they will work just the same. So they wanted to make sure that anybody that's got a Katana who wants to upgrade can do that without losing any of the patches or anything that they've created for themselves. Another awesome feature. In terms of the looks and size and feel of this amplifier, it's exactly the same. It's same sort of weight, dimensions, all the rest of it. It looks slightly different with this new emblem on the front, and you'll notice on the top panel there are things that have changed, but other than that, it's pretty much identical, which is good to know. So what's new on Katana MK2? I do have some notes that I've written because there's a lot of different things to remember, but the first thing to point out is there is now a variation button. Now that is really cool because what it does is adds 5 different amp models to the Katana. So before, where you had that rotary switch that could go between the different amps, you now have a variation button which gives you a further 5. So you've actually got 10 different amplifiers in total. Variations of the acoustic, clean, crunch, lead and brown sound. So it's really cool because there's just different options for different players, different sounds, different guitars, all the rest of it. cool feature is you now have dual concentric pots for your effects. So whereas before, how you'd kind of have to, you know, go between booster and modulation to find where you wanted, you have to go to 12 to then, you know, access a different effect. Now it's on dual concentric pots, meaning you can use the bottom part of the pot for, say, booster, and the top part of the effect pot for modulation, which you can see on the close-up. You'll get what I mean. It's just in terms of functionality and ease of use. They've answered some nice questions that people have had about that, so that's really cool to see. Another really cool feature is there are now a total of 65 boss effects built into Katana MK2, all of which are programmable. You can save them all, edit them to the nth degree using the Katana MK2 editor, which I'll also show you in a moment. And another very cool feature is we've got a power amp in on the back, so you can run the cab, you know, you could plug a GT1000 in, a Helix, a Kemper into the power amp in on this, and basically use a class AB power section coming out of the 112 cab. Really useful. For example, if I'm touring with Frog Leap and I want something on stage, I could just run the out of my Helix into the power amp in on this and have a little cab on stage in case my in-ears go down, for example. Another really awesome feature that I'm personally excited about, although I can't show you in this video because I don't have two katanas, is the stereo expand feature, which means if you've got two of these, you can run this in true stereo, where one of these katanas will slave the other, fully functional with all the stuff on the top panel. It will affect both, but on top of that, you can control the whole thing, the whole stereo rig, from one master GAFC foot switch. So if you run the GAFC into the back of the katana, you can run stereo expand, use two, and control it all from the same foot switch, which is really, really cool. And it gives you that whole true stereo sound, whether it be ping pong delays, reverbs, vibes, chorus, whatever. It would sound really tasty. As I said, there's a brand new editor which we're going to have a quick look at. You'll probably see a little screen grab quickly just to show you, but that will allow us to edit all our patches, save them, assign them to banks, assign them to different things, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really useful. We've got the GAFC foot switch in this video as well, which is basically giving us sort of full pedal board functionality, where you can change and toggle on or off any effect you've got assigned to that patch, and also control up to 4 channels. And then you've got the additional B versions of those channels, so you can actually run 8 channels from the foot switch and toggle on your effects manually if you wanted to, which is very useful. And then something just for the 212 and the head version is you've got cab resonance control on the top of those, whereas if you want to use the KT100 Mark II, you need to do that in the editor, but you can still control cab resonance like vintage, modern, deep, all that kind of stuff. Before we get stuck into the editor and start doing all our tones, I just wanted to breeze over the new amp variations in Katana MK2. Essentially, the variation is like A and B. So like A is exactly the same as the first lot of Katana, so you won't be losing or anything be different there, but when you hit variation, that's where you get all the new different sounds for those amps. So firstly, you've got 2 acoustics. You've got obviously your standard acoustic and then the variation. To demo that, I would need an acoustic guitar, and it's basically an acoustic preamp. So I'm not going to show you that in this video. We're going to focus on electric guitar and all that kind of stuff. So in the clean variation, obviously the first one is as it was. The variation of clean is like more body, more bottom end. It's kind of sounds a little bit more like a vintage deluxe or something like that, you know. The variation on crunch is a bit thicker. It's a little bit more raunchy kind of sound. It's just a different voice for that sort of crunchy rhythm sort of tone if you wanted to use it for that. The variation on lead is sort of modeled more on that kind of like American high gain tone, so it's thick and it's really good for just epic leads with a lot of note definition and punch, if that makes sense. And then the variation on brown is based around your kind of archetype American high gain metal amplifier, if that makes sense. I think you guys know what I mean. You'll probably hear what I mean when I plug in the old baritone to show you some dirty riffage. But that's all the variations of the amps. It's worth pointing out as well that these aren't modeling amplifiers, so they're not taking a model of a Fender and then tweaking it. These are all Boss's own amp models, if that makes sense. They're completely original to Boss. I really like that because they obviously do a very good job. Anyway, let's take a look at the editor. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the Boss Tone Studio for Katana MK2. Really straightforward. It's mega easy to use, and I just love how, you know, you can do everything here. It affects the amp, and you can save it all, assign it to foot switches, the rest of it. It's just wicked. So this is the top panel of the amplifier. As you can see, we've got all our amp types here, and then the variation button that switches between the variations of each amp model. Then we've got gain, volume, bass, middle, and treble as always. Then we've got our booster level, we've got modulation level, effects, delay, and reverb that are all, you know, you can turn them on and off with these buttons. And then we've got our cab resonance. This is really useful, generally speaking. Something that comes on the 212 and the 100 watt head is actually on a button on the panel itself, but if you want to change this, you have to do it in the Tone Studio for anything like the 100 watt combo or the 50 watt combo. Anyway, vintage, modern, deep, they all sound different. It's just different types of cab resonance, so depends what you like. And of presence. Now, underneath all these buttons, these tabs constitute to different features in the amp. So we'll leave this area here for now, and we'll just focus on the sort of effects area. So reverb, each reverb is, as you can see, you've got plate, room, hall, spring, modulation. That's your power button to turn them on and off. And then obviously you can affect all the parameters in here, you know, depending on what it is you're using. Generally, that's how you do it. Delay, you can have up to 2 delays running at once. So we'll focus on this delay. Analog, for example, or let's do SDD. SDE 3000, as you can see, there's tons of more options here. Loads that you can affect to really fine tweak the effect. If we move to effects, depends on what you're using, but you've got all of these. It's great. Chorus, flanger, phasers, vibes, tremolos, rotaries, like Leslie cabs, ring modulations, compressors, limiters, wahs, EQs, octaves. It's just tons of stuff. Even a DC30, I mean, that's fair play. They've got so much in here that you can mess around with. And obviously, depending on what effect you use, it changes the parameters that you can affect afterwards. And then modulation's more of the same thing, basically. Effects and modulation give you the option to load on 2 of the same, 2 different ones. You could do the old Mike Einziger trick and use 2 phasers if you wanted to get going with that kind of sound, which is very cool. But yeah, more of the same there. And then booster, which is all of our different boosts. Clean boost, treble, mid boosts, crunches, the blues driver. You got the OD. I'm assuming that's like the OD1. Then we got warm OD, turbo OD, tube screamers, distortions, distortion plus, the governor, which is like the old Marshall one. Rat. We've got metal zone. We've got the 60s fuzz, muff, and octave. It's just great how many different types of things you can use here. On the left-hand side, these are my different channels set up. So I've got channels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then B, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And the easiest way to switch between A and B is if you hold the panel button, and that's how you jump between presets A and presets B. And then once you've found a sound you like, you hit right, gives you an option here. Where do I want this to be saved? Let's say channel 2, and then I rename it example. There you go. Ooh, look at that. And then if I write that, now it's saved. It's now Rabea example on channel 2A. And yeah, basically that's how simple it is to use, the main feature of the Tone Studio. Of course, you've got Librarian where you can essentially save all your live sets if you're out gigging with this thing. Then we've got Tone Central, which needs to connect to the internet, but essentially allows us to share and show off our different patches. I'm going to be making some custom patches for the Katanas, which you'll be able to jump on Tone Central and grab. And then System, which is generally just all your kind of, you know, preferences and parameters and all that kind of stuff. So it is that simple to use. And I actually find this user interface very straightforward, which I enjoy. So there you go. There's a look at the Boss Tone Studio for Katana Mark II. Okay, so there's a quick look at the editor. Let's get into some tones. First of all, signal chain. I've got the Aston Stealth microphone, which is fantastic for guitars. That's on the cab, running straight into the Universal Audio Apollo X8P interface. I'm going to be using my Fender Custom Shop Strat, 71 Les Paul Custom, and my Chapman ML3 Baritone guitar. So let's get stuck in. We're on the clean channel right now. I'll punch in the variation button in a moment and we'll hear it. Just let you know, I've got the GAFC foot switch on the floor, which is toggling on effects and boosters that I've dialed in myself. So I've got reverb, delay, got a bit of univibe, got some octave, and I got a blues driver, and I'll dial them in as I go. But I just I want you to hear the sound of the amplifier with the mic straight in. So let's get some reverb and delay in there. throw on some octave. I love octave, sounds great. Univibe. And then the blues driver. So this is without and with. Okay, let me show you the variation of the clean. This is the standard clean. And here comes the variation. I can hear in the room, and I hope the mic's picking it up, but you're getting a bit more mid-range, there's more body. It definitely does sound closer to a classic sort of deluxe combo. I'm going to move to the crunch now. So I'm going to take variation off. Let's move to the crunch and hear how that sounds. So here we go. Right, I'm just going to mess with the controls a little bit, just so we can get some decent tones in here. Obviously I've got the presence as well. I normally like to roll the presence off a little bit on the Katana with a lot of gain. That's for my personal taste. Sounds great. Bit of octave. Sounds really good. Let's throw it on with the blues driver. Sounds really good. I'm just messing around at this point. So that's dry. I'm going to throw on the variation. So you're getting a little bit more sizzle on the top. Again, it's punching out the mids a bit more. It's a bit more girthy compared to before. And then again, you can hear that it's just kind of sizzling a bit more, which I like. Okay, so now we've moved on to higher gain voices like lead and brown. So I'm going to be using the Les Paul and the Baritone to show you what they sound like. But this is the lead from the first Katana, basically, before the variation. So, and I'll dial in some reverb and delay as well. That was at the gain at halfway, so I've turned it up now to 3/4. Okay, let's have a listen to the variation. This is before. Sounds great. And then the variation. We're getting a load more presence in there, so I can easily dial that in and out. And again, not only that, you've got EQs that you can build into this amplifier and really fine tweak the sound. But I'm just showing you kind of panel stuff right now. So yeah, let's drop that presence a bit. Okay, so that would be the lead sound. Let's move on to the brown and let's get the baritone out. Okay, got the baritone. We're now onto the brown sound, and this isn't the variation. This is the straight in brown sound. Here we go. Awesome, right, variation, this is before, and variation. So that's all the amps and variations. Of course, there is an acoustic preamp in here, but I'll leave someone who's very good at acoustic to demonstrate that, not me. But we got clean, crunch, lead and brown with those variations. Hopefully you could hear the differences. For me, I really love the variation on the clean. I think that's something that I was really excited about when I heard about this coming out. But yeah, it's really nice having that, and really does sound great on a Strat. And again, being able to chuck the blues driver in there, which is my favorite sort of drive pedal in front of a light clean or a crunch for things like that Stratty blues tone. Big fan of that. Okay, so at this point, now that we've checked out all the amps and the variations, and I'm messing around with different tones, I thought the easiest way to do this, really, because there's so much and the video would be 10 years long if I tried to do all of them, is I'm just going to do a couple of variations of like a pedal board, if that makes sense. So I'm going to program the amp as a preset, and I'm going to be able to turn on different effects and things to give you an idea of what you can do with this amp using the GAFC. So I've set up a patch right now, which is essentially, it's the clean on the variation. So I've got a whole reverb on there, quite a long decay. I've pulled out some high end. And now we can try out delay. This is the SDD300. Next, we've got a T-wah on the effect. So next up, I've got a tremolo added with a bit of reverb. Sounds really nice. And finally, I've got a octave fuzz, which is just gunned because it sounds sick. Needless to say, that's a great sound. One of my favorite sounds in general, but it's wicked that you can just dial it in and have it on a foot switch, like, and still go back to a nice chilled sort of sound. Bit of reverb and delay. The point is, using the GAFC as well with this, you know, for gigs and stuff like that, you've got like everything you could possibly want, and that's just one bank, right? You know, that's literally channel 1A, and there are channel 1A and B, and then you've got 4 of those, so you've got 8 different banks in total. And the amount of stuff that I just used and toggled on and off with that one channel, basically it's endless what you can do using the foot switch. So that's really cool. And also you've got expression pedal and volume pedal out on the back of the foot switch as well, so you can add things like, they've got a whammy sort of sound in here, so you can use a pitch shifter with an expression pedal on the side, so you can do that, which is sick. Also you can do an actual wah as well, because there's a wah feature in the effects section, so that's really cool too. Anyway, let's try humbuckers and get some other sounds. That wasn't a different sound. That was the octave fuzz, octave fuzz. But I just wanted to try it with a Les Paul, and it sounded sick. Anyway, let's try out some of the sounds. Just stumbled across this. This is a 60s fuzz gunned, and it's gating like a silicon vibe. Check this out. Really random, but kind of cool. Okay, so now I've set up a bunch of sounds. I'm going to control it with the GAFC. I'm using the crunch mode, not the variation, the straight up crunch. This is how it sounds. Really thick. Now throwing in the booster is the blues driver, gunned a little bit. Now, the modulation I've chosen is a heavy octave. So the next sound I set up is really cool. It's using a graphic EQ as more of like a notch filter. So how you could use this in context is this could be like the intro to your tune or whatever, where it sounds like a radio sound, and then when you stomp off it, it fills back up again. So like, I don't know, like a random riff. So you get the idea, you know, by using the graphic EQ, I can really sound like a song, and then add the octave for like the fatter riff in the song. Really cool. Delay and reverb. The delay is reverse and the reverb is a long plate. So there's another heap of sounds. To be honest, it's so cool. Like, the way I feel about this rig is that, you know, with the GAFC foot switch controlling this, giving me 2 banks per channel, if you know what I mean, I end up with 8 different channels, and all those effects I can add in and add out wherever I want. Basically, you could do an entire set list's worth of sounds using this gear. It just sounds really good. I really hope down the microphone it sounds good to you guys, because like in the room, it's really rewarding. Doing it all with my foot and then being able to really fine tweak it using the editor. So like pre-gig, you get all your sounds as you want them, load them on, go to the gig, use the foot switch, don't worry about anything on the panel. Just, it's awesome. Right, let's do some sounds with the baritone. Okay, now I've got the baritone, we'll do a couple of sounds with this. I thought I'll split it up between like an ambience thing that I like with the baritone and then something heavier. So this is the kind of crystal clear thing that I've got. It's a clean, non-variation of the clean. Just for the sake of experimentation, here's the variation. For me, I prefer it without. It's just a little bit softer for the baritone. So, right, here comes the long decay reverb. tape delay. Got some tape delay. For my effects, I'm using something called slow gear, which is like a slow rise in volume. So for my modulation, I'm using chorus. And finally, I thought I'd use the metal zone, just because why not? This is without, and this is with. So there are some of the sounds I created for the baritone. And what I'll probably do in the future is create a video that's just focused on the tones, different sounds and effects we can use with the Katana MK2. Because obviously this video is going to be really long, I think. It depends how John edits it down. But for this video, I really just wanted to focus on like an in-depth look across the board, across the whole amplifier, in terms of its new features, but also the GAFC and how the whole thing can be really functional for a gigging musician, but also if you just want a lot of useful tools at the push of a button with your feet, it's really easy to do that. So yeah, basically it was more of an overview in this video, and as I say, I'll do a dedicated tones video in the future. So there you go, there's a look at the brand new Boss Katana MK2. The thing about this for me is not only is it really affordable, it's packed full of awesome effects that you can do whatever you want with. The functionality of it using the GAFC foot switch means that it's totally giggable. You can tour this, it sounds fantastic, and it's mega easy to set up. And lastly, I just think as a whole, all-in-one package for a guitarist that doesn't want the fuss of having loads of different pedals, or is on a budget, or doesn't know what they want yet because they're starting out their tonal journey, I think something like the Katana provides for beginners, intermediates and professionals. Like, I mean that, you know. Yes, this is a sponsored video, of course, but I'm really good friends with the guys at Boss. I've been out to Japan, I've met the people behind the products, and I've done all of that, and my honest opinion is they really are the boss of this side of the market. Like, they just nail it. Like, you can't argue that this doesn't sound good, or that it's not functional, or that it's not useful. Like, everything about it just says to me, Here's something that you can do all in one box and you got nothing to worry about, and it's super easy to use professional piece of kit. Anyway, that's enough about me ranting on about how good the Katana is, and the Katana MK2 is nothing short of awesome. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you to Boss for allowing me to be one of the first people to show this off. Links in the description box below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe and share, and I will see you all very soon.